Hello,
Hello,
hello. Hi,
hello.
everyone. This is Dave and Roxanne.
Welcome to another episode of
It's
It's
a
a New
new
Day,
day.
It's
It's
a
a
New
new
You.
you.
If this is the first time you're tuning into our episode, we do these episodes once, twice, sometimes over 3 times per week. And the goal of this episode is to encourage you, inspire you that if you had a tough day yesterday, there's always a new day to become a new you, to become all that God created you to be.
Yes. So let us know where you're tuning in from. We always love to know how global we are in this community. We are currently in our home in Alberta, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
And typically when we do the New Day, New You, we always phrase it in a question. What's the question today?
The question today is: Are you afraid to start? Because you're not alone, and you don't have to stay there.
When I think of the word afraid, I throughout our personal development journey, fear always came out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when the acronym came out, it says fear stands for false evidence appearing real, right? It's just false evidence, right? It's appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only two things you can do with fear. Either you can feed the fear, it will grow, or you can stop feeding it and it will die. And I was sharing this in an interview, right? The only way to kill that fear instantly is to take action. Because when you take action, right, it almost cuts off
Mm-hmm.
even thinking about the fear. And we've gone through a lot of things that in our entrepreneur journey that is pretty scary, right?
Yeah, I love what it says here. Faith and fear both demand you believe in something you cannot see, so choose wisely.
Mhm.
So both faith and fear, it demands you to believe in something, right?
Mhm.
But you just have to choose. Am I choosing to have more fear or have more faith? Faith that you cannot see, but you still believe in it, right? I
Mhm.
remember the first time, we saw, when we first got married, well, when we got married in 2009, we were so full of dreams, full of, hope, right? And we did real estate. And at that time we were scared, but we're excited about life. And unfortunately, it actually strained us and we filed for bankruptcy. And I remember Dave, I give my husband honor because he still have that childlike faith, that he wasn't afraid to start over again. He wasn't afraid. I was scared to do anything, right? I was just ready to just pay off debts and just, work, work, work. But then I think after a year or 2 years, that's when, Dave, his entrepreneurial side still have that fire inside of him, and still,
We were still in bankruptcy, and I was looking
oh
for an
yeah,
I was
I
still looking for
remember
an
that.
opportunity because if you never gone through that, it's possible to be discharged within 1 year,
Hmm.
right? Doesn't mean your credit is good. It just means you're out of bankruptcy already. Now
Hmm.
you're rebuilding your credit. But when we were still in bankruptcy, I was already looking for the next business.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just I call it ABD, attention business disorder, or I just wanted to take action,
Yeah.
right? Instead of like Roxanne
Fear,
says,
let fear stop
yeah,
you.
instead of like feeding the fear, right,
Hmm.
or believing in something that will stifle us, I had hope
Yeah.
that I wanted to feed my faith so that will be keep growing and growing. And um,
Yeah, it says here, when God gives you a dream, He also gives you the strength to overcome fear, right? A lot of people have so much dreams, but because of failures, because of, maybe past experiences, we tend to our normal, self sometimes will actually, doubt and start to, like fear will start to get into our head, get into our heart, saying that maybe it's not for me. And you have to, I always believe in this, that, God will always give you that, that strength to overcome fear, right? So it's really, that's why we want to share this with you, because if we didn't have the courage, the strength to keep going, we wouldn't be in this place of freedom, in this place of now where we have our dreams came true, right? So we want to encourage you to don't allow fear to stop you, because fear is just, another way of stopping you. The enemy will stop you because he doesn't want you to be abundant, to be successful, to be you achieving those dreams, right?
so how do you feed your faith instead of fear,
Yeah.
right? That's the question, because sometimes when you think about it, that's when fear grows and grows. So one way to feed that fear more and more is to watch CNN. I talked about CNN, which is constant negative news, right? If you keep hanging out with negative people that tells you it can't be done, I've tried that before, that's a scam, right? That's feeding the fear, hanging out with those people. Or you're watching news that, instead of making you hopeful, you become fearful,
Mhm.
right? You're feeding that. I love, I think it's Joel Austin that said is, your eyes and your ears are the doorways to your soul, which will feed the fear or the faith,
Mhm.
right? Which will have the belief in, in faith or fear, right? They're both unseen. So that's one way of feeding your fear. So stay away from that. Run away from that.
Mhm.
Change the channel, as Joel would says. Go into, instead of CNN, go to FBM, faith building messages. Right? How do go? How do you get faith building messages which feeds your faith? Right? We're so blessed that we live in this social media world now that you can actually choose your channel.
Mhm.
Instead of negative news, you can faith building messages which will feed your faith. And that was one of the reasons why I was so hopeful, because listening to people that have overcome things, right, really worse things than us, right,
Yeah.
it fed our faith that it can be done. And reading biographies of people that have revolutionized things, like one of the thing is Henry Ford, for example, right? He went bankrupt 5 times. Think about that, right? And his dream was to democratize automobile, which means that he wants, at the time it was really expensive, it was only for rich people. His dream was to make a car that's democratized, which means that everyone can own it, right? And imagine you've bankrupt first time, your mind would have think like, oh, there's no way that investors
Mhm.
would want it again. When again he failed, right? But on the fifth time he changed everything. And when I read that, I said, wow, I just have to keep trying, because failure is a necessary road to success. And that's what fed my faith, that what, it's not that it's not that we failed, right? We just didn't find a way to succeed yet, right? And that is also perspective. Your perspective changes when you read and when you ingest faith building messages. And when the more you feed and feed and feed and feed, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you cannot help but take action. You cannot help but take action, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what is the direct um, correlation to faith is action, right? But fear is to retreat. Retreat means don't do anything, right? That is that's what we did. And a lot of people ask us, why are you guys so excited, so hopeful all the time? How do you keep yourself positive? Is because for years, even though we weren't successful, we would change everything. Like the radio. Another tip is remove the radio,
Yeah.
right? Put faith building messages,
Mhm.
from where you are to your work, because they say if you listen to faith building messages for the next 4 years, let's say on real estate or something, right? You'll be an expert, PhD at it, because of the amount of content you listen to.
Mhm.
They call it university on wheels, right? I call it faith building messages on wheels, right? If you feed and feed and feed and feed and feed, you become unbreakable, unstoppable in your faith. Right? That's what you do.
Yeah, and also, as we were saying, God will, if you have those dreams in your heart, whatever that may be, right? For us, we wanted to retire our parents, we wanted to quit our corporate jobs, and we wanted to, become debt free, mortgage free, right? Whatever those dreams that you have, God will always give you the strength, the resources, the money, the time, the talents. So it's not really a matter of saying, oh, I don't have those. Of course, we all, when we started those dreams, you don't have all those resources. That's why it takes, it requires faith from us rather than fear, right? And how do you build, aside from listening to faith building messages, is also find, a group of people or mentors, or like
A
a
community.
community to help you and encourage you. Sometimes our maybe our circle of people around us may not be, positive, and that's okay. The good thing about the social media now is we can have online
Yeah,
community.
find offline
Yes.
or online. If you cannot find offline, most people can.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a very negative environment, I have one advice for you, and comment in the chat. If you have a very negative,
Mm-hmm.
peers, friends, right? one word for you: run. Comment run in the chat, because why? I can predict your future 5 years from now by two things. And a mentor told me this: with the books you read and the people you associate with.
Mhm.
Think about that, right? You will become the books you read and the people you associate with. You want to become financially successful? The easiest shortcut is to find successful people, hang out in proximity with them, as much as you can, whether you like it or not, right? You will, you
Mm.
know, you know, be contaminated by their excitement, their faith, you know, their unwavering, passion for life, right? But on the reverse side, it will also be the same. Yeah, it just reminds me when I was in college, I was a C student, right? C student, and I was just walking in the aisle. This is the second time when I went to school again, because I graduated. I went back to school again. It's a long
Mm.
story. Anyways, I saw an ad that says this paper was posted in the bulletin board. It says how to go from a C student to an A student. It's like, wow, I'd like to learn that. So I went to this seminar, right? It was in university. This guy was teaching how he became an A student. He was an A student, I think University of Toronto, something like that. He was teaching on how to take an exam, tips on taking the exam, how to read a book faster, what are all the hacks. But you know what the biggest hack he told us, right? The biggest hack is find a student in your classes and start to hang out with them. It's like, what? That's the hack, right? So I did. I started to look for. I was a C student. I started to look for A students in our class, right? I started to befriend them. I started to hang out with them. What I found with these people, their standards, their belief in themselves, their faith in themselves is completely different. I was just running to class late. This guy's coming like 30 minutes, an hour early, right? If I submit my project on time, I'm happy. They've submitted a week early, right? If I get like a B or a B plus in a project or an exam, I would be happy. These guys were mad. They were pissed, right? Because they want an A or an A plus, right? Their standards were different because I hanged out with them, right? I had faith. I fed my faith in myself because I saw in them that I could be like these people. It increased. I wasn't an A. I wasn't an A student. I was a C to a B plus. But the biggest hack was I hang out with A students. So that is the biggest hack for you. You want to become an A student in your finances? Find people
Mhm.
that's how you increase your faith, like Roxanne said, online or offline,
Yeah.
right? You know, be an A student in your marriage. Find out A student marriage couples in your life, online or offline, right? Health, right? The biggest hack is find a group of people, right? Because if your group of people are like, that they love to eat out, they love to eat desserts, right? Then find them. Anyways, Roxanne's telling me the time. I think it's about time to end, right?
Yes. So our we always end this new day, new you with a scripture from 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. It says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind."
That is so powerful. We're gonna end with that. That's called like nothing else to say, right? God has given you the
Yeah.
power. Comment power, right?
Mhm.
The power of love and a sound mind. Sound mind means that you could think properly, no fear whatsoever, right?
Mhm.
That's There you go. That's called drop the mic
Yes.
from the Bible itself. So
Yeah. So, if you're afraid to start, you're not alone, but don't stay there. You don't have to stay there because God has given you that power, that love, and a sound mind to have more faith for your dreams, for your future.
thanks for tuning in. That is another episode of It's
It's
a
a
New
new
Day,
day.
It's
It's
a
a
New
new
You.
you.
God bless
God bless
everybody.
you. Bye.